Okay, let's go ahead and get ourselves started today. Sorry for the slow start, but hopefully we'll catch ourselves back up. Here's our agenda for today. We have a lot of fun stuff we want to do, picking up on the whole notion of modeling in place. So really just ways you can go ahead and create your own custom geometries. And the idea here is we really want to sort of increase your modeling power, because it's just, as soon as we sort of start looking at these sorts of capabilities, we can model anything in the world. Like almost every 3D modeling piece of software is based on these same fundamental notions of being able to kind of do some basic transforms to get lines and paths converted into 3D forms. And we'll just start looking at that, kind of completing the story on the modeling in place, but then looking at how we can generalize that to actually create families that you can then share. And we'll see that all those Revit families that you've been downloading from Revit City or pulling out of the library are really all created in the same way. And if you start to understand how you can do that, that just opens up the door to infinite possibilities for what you can go through and create. Okay, so that's where we're going. We are also, and I'll switch the order around, we'll talk about assignment 3 at the tail end, because I think it'll make more sense after we talk about, the families and how we go through and create this. So we'll go ahead and flip the order around just a little bit. So here's what we are going to do today. Okay, it all started with this notion of the custom geometries and this idea that you could model things in place. And really, the big point behind modeling in place is that if you're going to use an object exclusively in this project, so in this one project file, not that you want to use it in amongst many projects, but in this one project file, modeling in place gives you a way to do that just really quickly. And it's good for things that are very, very location sensitive or just, really custom to the specific geometry. They're very quick, you get this perfect fit. The big limitation is, though, that the things we create this way aren't easily reusable or resizable. So we started looking at some different mechanisms for going through and creating those. It all started with using this model in place tool, and we had to choose a family because everything needed to belong to some category. We can then start creating elements as solid or void forms and set some properties and create these elements. And that's really where we left it last time. We were looking at this whole notion of, we started by choosing a family like casework or furniture, something like that. And then just tracing a boundary and creating something that we called an extrusion. Okay, and that's really the beginning of it. Today what we're going to do is continue looking at modeling in place with extrusions and going a little bit further in terms of the other types of forms that you can create. We then show you how we can do that in a reusable family way, where we can start actually adding parameters to things to make them resizable and scalable and really give you a lot more power. Okay, so that's where we're going. So just to refresh on all that, let's go popping over to, say, my architectural template. You can do this in any of the different versions, but just go ahead and open up something. And modeling in place looks something like this. We have, just to give ourselves some context, I'll go through and put in some walls. I'll just let them be generic walls for now, because I'm just going to make sort of a generic, well, why am I doing it that way? I just want to make a corner. Rather than drawing the box, I'll just use the single line. I'll keep them going up to level 2. So I'm just creating a corner. And in that corner, we're going to go through and put some geometry. Let's go take a look at it in 3D. So the example we used last time was, the notion of putting some countertops on a cabinet, something like that. And if we want to do something like that, I can place a component. I'll go out and get one of my cabinet components. You'll see they're not here by default, so I'll load them in. And let's find something in the casework library, some base cabinets. And we'll just do some of these base cabinets that have a couple drawers and a couple doors on them. So we'll just go through and put it in there. Let me pan that around. I'll put some on that wall. Maybe I'll put one on this wall over here. Let me spin it a little. I hit the space bar to spin it around. Maybe even we'll go through and put in a little corner cabinet in there to kind of make that corner. That often gives us the reason for why we have to go through and create a custom countertop. So we'll find a component out there in the library. I'll load in, and let's see if I can find something nice. But again, don't worry if you don't have these cabinets. This is going to be perfectly generic. whether you have these or not. So I'll put this over here in the corner. I'm going to hit the space bar. That'll pivot it around a little bit. Let's see if I can get it in there. Now, I've kind of placed them in there fairly sloppily right now. I'm going to do a little aligning just to get them all in place. So zooming on in here. You can see I've got all these little cabinets. I'm going to turn on thin lines. That'll just make it a little easier to see the walls. Zoom on in even closer. Okay, and oh, what am I going to do? I'm going to take this cabinet, which is sort of buried alive in the wall right now. Kind of put it nicely in the corner. And then to line up the other cabinets, I tend to actually use the align tool and lock cabinets together. And the reason I like to do that is if the cabinets move, they all kind of move together as a big chain. So I think even some of you for the assignment went through and found like some complete kitchens as a single piece out there online and like Revit City and stuff like that. And how they made those was they just took a bunch of pieces and stuck them together and locked them. And yeah, you can make components, pieces which are contain other components which contain other components and get really, really meta. Just making whatever's useful to you. So I'm going to go to the Modify tab. I don't even see the Modify tab now, so what I'm going to do is click in a cabinet and then it'll bring it up. Oh, it's hiding off on the side there. Modify there. And I will choose the edge of that and align this to it. I'm going to lock it. But choose the edge of that and pull it over. And again, you don't have to do this alignment and locking. I just do that because then it makes them move as a single unit. Okay, so far all we've done is set up a little context for what we're up to. Okay, we want to put a countertop on that. It's an example of an extrusion, so let's do that. That's the easy extrusion. Then we'll do some other extrusions just so you get an idea. So for example, if I want to put an extrusion on top of that, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through and basically trace a boundary and then give it just a thickness and a material. Okay, and that's where we were last time. So I'm going to go back to the level 1 floor plan. I could do this in 3D. This may just be a little bit easier to do in 2D. So under architecture, instead of placing a component, we can move down the menu, say model in place. And here's where we start down that workflow. Starts with basically just choosing a category. So this will control the visibility graphics of what it belongs to and when it reports, where this area will get counted. So I'll make it a piece of casework. I'll just call it like kitchen counter 1. And now we're ready to start creating things. And this little palette way over here, this is the cool spot. This is where you find extrusions, blends, sweeping. Those are all the different types of forms we can create. So you're going to choose a tool out of that. And when we're done creating that tool, we can finish the model. Now, for these in-place models, and families too, we make them out of a series of different forms. So you can have a in-place model that's only a single form, or you can put 2 or 3 different pieces all together. Because to model a lot of things, like if I was going to model this lectern, I might have an extrusion for the top here, I might have a different extrusion for the base, I don't know, maybe a sweep for something at the bottom. You can often make things up out of several pieces. And so we've opened it up. We're going to create the first piece that's going to fit inside the model. So we'll go for extrusion. We're going to start doing some tracing now. Now again, this is the point where you can draw if you like to. I tend to like to pick lines because then they line up very nicely. And I grab the little pick tool. So I'll pick the back wall here, and I'll pick the back wall here. Now, this is one of those like subtle points. I could go ahead and pick the backs of all those other cabinets, but I tend not to do that. I'll tend to just trim, because even though I could create a single line out of 3 different segments, I always think it's a little stronger just to create it out of a single segment and trim them back together. So that way they don't get separated somehow. So I'm going to just trim those 2 back pieces together, make the corner. Then on the front, this is where we'll use the offset, because what I want to do is typically countertops, they hang over a little bit. They have that little bit of difference, so I want a relationship. I want it to line up with the edge, but I also want to give it that 1-inch overhang. So I'll choose the pick tool again, but I'll put an offset in here. Something like 0.1 or however many inches I want that to overhang. And then when I hover over the line, you see it has that little kind of green dashed line to the right of the edge of the cabinet. That's where it will place this. If I complete, I'll offset to the edge here. And I'm actually just going to offset all around the front because the truth is when I do my cabinets, it looks like, oh, is that one going to offset for me? That one may not. I want it to, but it doesn't look like it's going to. Odd. I'll draw it then. Oops. Actually, watch out with this. If you have an offset set and then you choose draw, it doesn't draw the line where you want it to. Okay, so, famous ways I get myself in trouble. That's one. Okay. Now I'll just draw from the endpoint there to the endpoint there. We are almost good. I need to do a little trimming still. TR to trim. And I'll choose those. I can't tell if those are really together or not. They sort of look like they're not, but I bet they actually are. Hard to tell. I'll know in a minute when I try to, oops, close it. Looks like down here it's not quite together either, so maybe a little TR trim action down there. Okay, so I got my single piece of cabinetry here. And I can, now after I've created the boundary or the profile for the extrusion, I can put in a start and an end. And that's that whole thing. It's 3 feet at the top and 2 foot 10.5 if you're here in the US. A little bit different. So you can put millimeters, whatever you like in there. And we could also choose a material. So let's see what I have in my library. Cherry wood, copper. We're going to learn how to create our own materials if we don't like these. Anything good there? Yeah, I'll make it stainless steel for now. That'll render shinily. That solid black may be a little bit much. I'm going to turn the color down a little, just so it's not quite so shiny. Okay, so when we finish this, it creates, it's not quite there. You can see I didn't quite, when I was doing my trimming, clean everything up. So it's asking me to close the loops on both ends. So let me zoom in there and do that. Looks like I still have a little gap here. Let me roll back out. And I still have a little gap over here. Trim, trim. Okay. I will finish. Okay, and hopefully that looks pretty good now. So far so good on that part? Okay, excellent. That part you're good on. I'm not going to kind of belabor that. The last time we looked at how we could cut a hole by just sort of putting an interior boundary in there. We put a second piece in there to put a little backsplash in there. Those are all like little tricks, but no worries. We'll just get everyone caught up. So we're hanging here. Let's talk about this whole notion of, I'll make it consistent colors, it'll be easier. Let's talk about how we can use this sort of a little more generally, because the truth is we can extrude almost any shape we want to bring up. Okay, so what else could we go through to extrude? We can make sort of a big round surface, and well, we can make some sort of archy surface. We can really make whatever we want. Any suggestions for something else we might be able to extrude out of the ground? Suggest a part, any part at all. I'll try to extrude something that looks like it for you. Don't be too challenging. A what? That'll be a revolve. Hold the snowman for the revolve. I'll show you why that, yeah, but hold that. Snowman's coming. What's that?
Bedside table.
Sure. Okay, remind me. Okay, bedside table. Let's think about how a bedside table might be made. So at a high level, we could make a little, like a top to it. We can give it sort of a base. That'd be real simple, like just 2 extrusions. Maybe we'll start with that. I could go ahead and put like a void in here. So we'd have a place to stuff books and things. Maybe that's a good starting point. Let's do that as, that'll get us going. It'll let me sort of show a multi-part extrusion and show you how to use a void too. So I like that. Okay, so we'll go ahead and make this bedside table. So we got our sort of plan, part 1, part 2, plus a void. Let's go ahead and do it. We'll say architecture. We'll go to the model in place. Again, now this won't be a piece of casework. I'd probably call this a piece of furniture. So we'll say furniture. I'll call it my bedside table. And we're ready to start drawing. I'm going to go back to the floor plan again just because I think it'll be easier to draw it there. I'll put it over on the side of the kitchen. Should probably put a wall in there somewhere. But we'll do a couple different pieces. The first extrusion, how about we extrude this little base thing here first? Let's go with that. So how long, what dimensions do you want this to have? Say, and what do you have in mind? Like 2 feet by 18 inches, something like that? Sure, you'll go with it. I'm just guessing. So I'll draw something like a little boundary like that. Make that maybe, oh, I'll make it even 2'6", whatever. We'll give you a lot of room in this thing. About 18 inches, ooh, lucky guess. Okay, now we have to decide how tall it's gonna be up to the countertop, not exactly. Bedside tables are kind of low. These tables are like 30, no, not 32 even, those might be even 30 or 28. Let's make it about 24 inches tall, and then we'll put a countertop on top of that. I'm just guessing. I don't know the height of a bedside table. That's a good question. So maybe about 2'0" at the top, and we can start that at 0. Now I'm just gonna sort of bring it down as a big block all the way to the carpet, something like that. We could bring it up a little higher and put some little legs under it if we get a little more elaborate. We'll keep it simple at first, and we'll keep on building up our repertoire. Okay, so is that?
So if you were going to do the separate little legs, would you create like different extrusion and like connect them somehow, or are they just right up next to each other? So
no, we can actually join it, or they will stay joined because of like being together. But you know, it's kind of an interesting one. The legs are sort of an interesting idea because the interesting thing, if we put little legs underneath here, you probably actually have, and this is the way to think about it. Yeah, we could extrude that as 4 separate little pieces, or we could take a single extrusion that has 4 little pieces and stretch it up like, you know, that same distance. And the way you tend to think about that is if a bunch of parts are going to have the same material and always have the same start and end, then you might as well just extrude them together. Okay, so we have a choice. We'll go for it. Okay, I like your suggestion. We'll go say from 0,4 to 2,0. Okay, so I'm gonna raise it up a little, so we'll put those little legs underneath it. Okay, so I got my first piece. I'll finish that up. Okay, piece 1 is ready. Okay, piece 2, let's put this guy on top. Okay, so that's probably gonna be, oh, let's have an overhang maybe 2 inches on each side, something like that. We'll come back over to the Create tab. We're gonna do another extrusion. Okay, we're still in the same InPlace model. This is all going to move together as a single piece, but it's the same element. I ran out of good terms to distinguish between all these things. These are forms, and we'll see if we'll make it work. Okay, now, I could have done the offset there. The other way I can do this is, oh, I probably should have done the offset. I can move the witness lines and say, make that 2 inches. I can take this, what I'm doing is taking the little dimensions and I'm just trying to dimension to make that exactly 2 inches. Actually, I should stop and show you what I'm actually doing there since I don't think we ever talked about that. That's probably pretty close. What I'm doing is every object always has temporary dimensions. To choose on a line, it has temporary dimensions. In this case, it's not measuring to what I want it to measure. So what I'm going to do is actually just grab the end of the dimension line. There's something called a witness line, which says what it's pointing to. I'm going to say move that and just make it where I want it to be. And then I can go through and type in a temporary dimension. So, you know, I could have put real dimensions in there, but I can sort of adjust my temporary dimensions too. So that's our tabletop. Now this one, it's not going to go from 4 to 2 inches. This is going to go to from 2 feet to, oh, how thick do you want the countertop to be on it? Or the tabletop? It's your table. You get to choose. 1.5 inches. Okay, sounds good. Okay, so not 1.5. Here we'll actually put in 2 foot 1.5. Just, you know, so because it's very explicit. It's not relative. When we start creating our own families, we'll do that as a relative thing. We'll just say the thickness of that countertop. Here we have to be kind of give it, you know, the dimensions in global space. Does that make sense? Okay, last little piece, or almost the last little piece. We are going to go through and create an extrusion. Can't see the base anymore. Maybe I'll just make this wireframe so I can. Okay, we're going to make those little legs at the bottom. What do you want? You want square or you want round?
Square.
Okay. Little did you...
Round for the sake of doing this.
What's that?
For the sake of just doing this, we can just do round.
That's fine. I'm good. You're good. I'm good. Okay. We'll make a little like a round leg here. Something like that. Okay. Now this, okay, we got this guy here. That's one complete loop. That's going to create space. I can't overlap loops, but I can have several separate loops. Does that make sense? Oh, maybe I'll show you what I mean. I can do this. I'll copy this thing. So I have separate loops. So that's two positive forms. Okay. And if I take these two and I copy them, now I got four little legs. Okay, for this, oh, it'll start on the floor, maybe go up to 0'4". Actually, I haven't been putting materials in there. We could have been putting materials in there all along. So maybe these legs are stainless steel. Let me finish those. But I'm thinking this countertop, it's probably not stainless steel. Maybe we'll change that to be cherry wood or something nice. And maybe even this thing that's the box in the middle. We'll make that cherry wood also. Okay, feeling good so far? Okay, excellent. Let's take a look at this. Boom. Okay, there's my little boxy table. Not too bad. Feel good? You guys got something like that? You got some sort of little boxy thing going on your screen? Excellent. Okay. We are going to add one more thing to it. You're right on. Step by step, right on top. Very good. It's the mirror. That's good. Wow. You're fast. We need to put that hole in the middle where we're going to stick our books and our magazines and all the things we say we're going to read but fall asleep at night and don't. I put my iPad in there. Okay, so we need that little hole. So here's how we're going to put that in here. That hole, yeah, it's kind of an extrusion too. The big difference between it and the other ones is it's a hole, not positive mass. So we're going to create something called a void form as opposed to a solid form. But other than the fact that it's called a void and subtracts, you know how to do this. So say create. We have void forms. Turns out actually you can change a form later. If you make a form a solid and you need to make it a void, it's just a property. You can choose whether it's solid or void. But I'll say a void extrusion. And let's just kind of draw something in here. Now, since I have the benefit of the doubt, I can sort of see where the boundaries are. Something like that. That's in a little bit too much right now. If I did that right now, I would have a hollow in the middle because I didn't quite kind of penetrate the front edge there. If I make it exactly even with the front edge, okay, that'll be just perfect. You know. Turns out voids have this nice property. You could actually stretch it out. Voids are allowed to kind of just void space also. That's okay. It doesn't really matter. So whatever makes it easier for you. Okay. Now for this one, what do you think? It's about 4 inches to here. Where should that start? If it's 4 inches to that, at 5, you'll have a very thin little shelf there. That's okay. And at the top over here, this is 24 inches right to there. So where do you want that line to be? That one. That's good. Yeah, there's no wrong answers here. You're designing the furniture. Then later we're going to 3D print it. Because we almost can these days. Okay, let me complete that. Okay, let's take a look at it in 3D. Not too bad. Let me center this around that thing so you can actually see it better. What do you think? Oops, not too bad. I think pretty nice for your first piece of furniture. Okay, We can put a shelf in there, maybe another extrusion for that. We can do all sorts of different things. We kind of really, glitz this thing up. But this is all an in-place piece. So I'll finish this, and let's talk about what you can do with this now. So it's an in-place piece. The nice thing about in-place pieces, that was pretty easy to go through and create. I can copy this, kind of move it around in my project. I can copy it, and then maybe rotate it. So I'm doing pretty good there. The one thing I can't do with it is I can't give it to Raj, who desperately wants it to complete his project because it's localized to my project. Okay, so I can't get it over there very easily. I can't even copy and paste it over to him very easily. It's sort of just stuck in my world right now. So this was okay to get going. We're going to learn a better way, okay, when we want to share it. But this is not too bad. This basic procedure of adding up all these extrusions, blah, 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 perfectly applicable. That's going to transfer over exactly the same way when we say we want to create a reusable family. We'll just sort of put it in a better envelope to make it more transportable. Okay, so extrusions, you got a pretty good, extrusions are pretty easy, right? Just put a profile, stretch it up. Okay, so let me give you, there's just a couple variations on extrusions that sort of give you more and more kind of increased modeling power. Okay, that's some of the other things that are hanging around in this this special mode when we're creating components. So, after extrusions, the next thing on your in your bag of tricks is something called a blend. If an extrusion is a single profile and extruded or just stretched perpendicular a set distance, blends give you a little more capability. Blends let you have two different profiles, a profile for the bottom and a profile from the top. It still has to be stretched perpendicular. Okay, you can't kind of go off in a funny angle. Well, I guess you can in a way, but it's going to take two different profiles and join them together. Okay, but they have to be planar. They have to be coplanar. Does that make sense? I'm never quite sure exactly the right words to describe these sometimes. Okay, but it looks something like this. I'm going to make another piece of furniture. Oh, this is going to be my twisty tower. So what's this one going to look like? It's going to look something like this. I'm going to choose blend. Now, when you choose the blend tool, we're going to draw a profile again. And by default, what you're going to draw is the profile at the base. Okay, so for whatever the starting point is. So we'll say, hey, let's go ahead and I'll just draw some kind of rectangular-y thing. Okay. Now we're going to go through and draw a profile for the top. So we've just done the base. When we want to switch over to the top, you see that button says Edit Top? Okay, that's the one we're going to go to. It's going to say Edit Top, and you'll see the base profile kind of grays out. Now we can put the top profile in. So I'll make this real simple at first. I'll make just a very simple little thing like this. Okay. So, what kind of form is this going to create? When we get done, what's this going to look like?
Pyramid.
Yep, it's a pyramid. Excellent. We can choose how tall it is. I'll maybe make it 6 feet tall, whatever it is. Say OK. We'll complete that. Let's take a look at it in 3D. Not too awfully bad. Now, these guys, these little guys we're creating, they often have little, let me see if I can kind of select it, make it do it. See those little handles that pop up? Whenever it can, it'll give you the option of stretch handles, things that'll let you kind of control it. In this case, we can kind of adjust the start and end. So if I want that pyramid to be a little taller, I can make that taller. If I want to bring the bottom up and have it float off the ground, I can do that. This could be all sorts of things. If I flatten that out like this, that could be a range hood. That could be, a light fixture that's over some sort of table, like a pool table or something like that. Just start thinking creatively. There's a lot of ways to kind of create very simple objects like that. And things don't have to necessarily be kind of just rectangles going to rectangles. You get all sorts of variations. So let me go back to create again. You can do circles to circles, make like a cone. So that'd be the base. The top, I can't actually do it to a single dot. I'd have to come up with, just a little bit of something. If I want to do a cone, a true cone, that would actually be a revolve. And we're doing our snowman, we'll talk about that. Okay, so that's more like a cone. Take a look at that. Okay. We could also take two different shapes which are disparate, that aren't really the same. So we can, you can do something like, let's do a blend between, I'll do this. Oh, I got some sort of shape that looks like this. This will at least have the same number of corners. Let's do a shape that looks like this. Okay. Can you imagine what that's going to look like? Let's see what that looks like. Hard to tell in 2D. This actually looks like several modern buildings that have been built recently. Yeah. If I put like a big hole in the top to go on through, it kind of look like the Shanghai Financial Center. There's a lot of things you could sort of do, or there's these basic forms. You can use them on very small things. You can make them on very big scales. Either way, kind of pulling it all together. Yeah, you can also blend, let me show you this. You can blend shapes that don't have the same number of sides, but sometimes it gets a little confused about that. For example, a hard one is to take, for example, I'll do it the other way. Let me do it with the square first. It's kind of hard to do something like a square form and blend it to a perfectly round form. I'll make it really weird. Let me do this. To an ellipse. Okay, and this will give it a little trouble. At least in this blend tool, it'll have a hard time with that. Because it's got 4 sides and it's going to try and come up and make it a perfectly smooth surface. It's going to kind of freak it out a little bit. So, not such a great approximation. Not bad. We're going to learn some other techniques for actually doing a better job with that. Okay, where you can actually really get a smooth blend between those things. But at least in this blend tool, yeah, you get about like 50% of the functionality, but it's pretty easy to use. Okay, so how do blends feel? Blends feel okay? You imagine some places where you kind of blend things together. It's funny, when you start looking around in rooms, you'll start noticing more things that are blends than what you might imagine. Even silly things like, not sure if you can tell, like the back of the monitor here. I'm going to pick this up. I just realized this. You see, this is actually kind of a blend that kind of came together. There's a lot of things that actually are sort of blends between different things. And, we use that. Didn't break anything. Good. Okay, let's keep going. We're going to show you the next exciting one that you need to know about, the sweep. Okay, and the sweep is actually kind of a fun one. Sweep looks like this. Sweep is, okay, we got profiles. We've learned how to take a single profile and stretch it in perpendicular. We've learned how to take 2 profiles and get them to kind of morph together. Okay, this is all about, we're going to take a single profile, but instead of just stretching it perpendicular, we're going to wind it along some path, any arbitrary path you might want to wind it along. Okay, so this is good for things like crown molding. Let me see if I can find some examples in here. That's my Revolve. Save that. Okay. If you have to put a piece of crown molding around a cabinet or some crown molding around a room, anytime you have some shape which just follows a path around some other object. And it turns out, that's again sort of a very common thing. So let me show you how it works, and we'll see if we can come up with some good uses for it. In Create Land, we are going to choose the sweep as a type. Actually, let me go ahead and close this model, just so I'm going to make the sweep a separate piece. I'm going to have all these like blends be a separate little thing over here. So I'm going to create a new in-place model. Okay, and we'll make a sweep. So, oh, what will this be? I'll let this all, I'll just make it a piece of furniture also. So here's how it works. Sweeps have two pieces. Sweeps have a path and a profile. And what you often do is do the path first and then put the profile that you want dragged along the path. Okay, so we can do this a couple of different ways. I could go through and sketch a path. So for example, I could just put a path here on the floor. I'm just going to draw some arc. Okay, and that's just a little curved path. That's a very simple little path. Okay. Now, on that path, you might notice in the center of the path, there's this groovy little box floating around in there. And what that is that's called the sketching plane, or the work plane for drawing the profile. Okay. So it's a little bit oblique to us right now. Let me orbit it around so you can sort of see it better. Let me recenter this right on this thing so you can sort of see that better. Okay, so that's actually a little plane for sketching. So you see that dot, that red dot, that's going to be the point on this plane that follows the path. And now we draw something on that plane and it'll sweep it along that entire path. So let me kind of show you what I have in mind. So if you wanted to do something really simple, we could do something like just draw a circle. I could just draw a circle. I think I'm drawing it flat right now. Oh, because I'm still down on that plane. Hang on. Let me try this. I'm going to say set. See if I can get this to work this way. No. Let me do it by picking a plane in first instead of doing a drawing. My problem is when I draw now, I'm sort of out of plane with this, so that'll just complicate our story for just a little bit. Let me do this. Instead of just drawing a plane, put out of there. Do you want to just go there? No. Okay, let's come back over here. I'm thinking about the best way to get myself. I'm going to discard that for right now. I will start my sweep over again. I'm going to sketch a path. Okay, I want to put some profile on that path. Not to worry. Let me finish the path. I'm done drawing there. I am now actually ready to do something with the profile. For the profile, I can either go through and sketch. Yeah, maybe I can do it now. Let me try it again. Editing the profile. Oh, I think actually I am okay. I was sort of in the wrong place back then. I'm going to pull a circle out. Okay. That circle is now basically going to follow that path. Okay, so sort of assume it's the circle and that red dot's basically going to follow that path. So when this gets done, what's it going to create? What? Yeah, it's kind of like half of a hula hoop. Yeah, it could be a handrail. It could be all sorts of things like that. In fact, railings, when we do railings and they have that curved handrail, that's how it's made. It's made as a sweep. Okay. Let's finish that out. And we'll finish that. Okay. Now, your suggestion I kind of liked. That was actually pretty good. If I take the same thing over here and I edit the sweep, okay, there's the path and there's the profile. Let's say we're going to select the profile and edit it again. Okay, there's the profile. Okay, how would I make that a tunnel? Exactly. You guys got it. Okay, it's like a pipe now. Beautiful. Now I have a pipe. So, infinite flexibility. Everything in the Revit family is ultimately made up with this stuff. It's really just these basic things. So sweeping is kind of a really good thing. Sometimes you draw a path. Another thing that's really handy you can do is you can just pick a path. And that's really handy. Let me show you how you could use that. let's come on over here. Let's just do something in this room. My very boring room here. We haven't paid much attention to it at all. What if I wanted to put a nice piece of crown molding, a cornice molding around, or a chair molding, or a baseboard, or something like that? Okay. I might want to basically pick a path around the top edge of the room and then just sweep a profile along that path. So interior designers use it this way. I'll say create a sweep. And now, as opposed to, for the sweep, sketching a path, I'll pick a path. Okay, just pick some lines in 3D. And I'll choose that edge there and that edge there. Okay, so I'm just picking the inner surface of the wall up at the top. I could have put that lower if I wanted to. Okay, and now, I think I'm done picking my edges. Oh, hang on, let's go back. They must not be trimmed up nicely. Let's see what happens in here. Okay. You see they're not quite trimmed up in the corner. I got that little bit of overlap. So TR, trim. Okay, now it'll be okay. So I've created a path. Again, instead of sketching, just picking. Same sort of thing. Okay, now we're ready to go through and figure out the profile. So here's the place where we can sort of see what the profile is going to look like, where we would draw it. It's the center of the first line we draw is really where it always puts that. So we have some choices here. We could go ahead and load a profile. There's actually all sorts of profiles that are out there available for you. You don't have to make these things up. There's actually a whole folder in the library full of profiles. So crown moldings and cornice moldings. I could sketch a very specific type of molding if I want, but let me go ahead and just try loading one in there. I'll load a profile since they've already done some work for me. They're actually down there in the library called profiles. And what do we have in there? Railings, decks, wall, curtain wall. Let me see what my wall profiles are. There's some cornice molding. So that's a really elaborate piece of crown molding. A lot of kind of edges to it. You kind of choose whatever you have in mind. I'm going to just, put one of those big cornices. They call them, or crown moldings. That's a very groovy one, very colonial. Say okay. I loaded it in there, now I have to go through and choose it. There it is, cornice right there. Okay. You can actually sort of see it. See it right in there? Now this is actually, you can sort of see it's a little high right now. It's going to fly above the wall as opposed to being in the wall. So I might want to put a little offset to it. There is this, we've chosen a path but it's not quite right, I can put a little vertical offset or horizontal offset, either have it stand off the wall or drop it down. So let me just drop it like 5 inches and see if that works. Might have been a little bit much, maybe -4 inches. Good question. Looks like you can. Check that out. Smart. I didn't know how to do that.
It didn't do it exactly.
It didn't do it quite. I bet if we actually did this, hang on. So I'm not oblique now. Is that what yeah, okay. Let's see if I can align it. Aligning is always a good thing. See if it'll let me. I'll get the top of the wall. Can I get the top of my profile? Not quite. Okay. Alas. So close. You definitely get points for like a good idea. Okay, and then, okay, that's horizontally right. Still just a little bit high. What do we think it is? Could be 128ths, which is a half. Oh, it's some odd measure. It's like 3/8 or something like that. But what we're going to do is finish that and check.
Maybe just change, like, if you have your target thing at the top there, and you change the shape you loaded to be like below the target one.
We'd have to define the profile a little different. Now, the profiles are defined with the notion of where their insertion point is. So we could redefine the profile, moving the target insertion point up to the top, and then it would be a downward profile as opposed to an upward profile. That would be, if I was doing this a lot, that would be the way to do it, because that would really give you the more power. Actually, Now you have me wondering, since we have it in here now, I wonder if I could align this to the top of the wall, the finish profile. If I never give up, because when I hear like what I think is a good idea, no, not quite. Can't even arrow it. Alas. I can flip the profile. Not that you'd want to. Let me undo that. But very cool tool, very useful. Sweeping anything that's a long continuous surface. And here, we did a single arc. We went through and we did kind of 2 straight segments, and that's kind of okay. The other thing you could do that's really kind of groovy about it, though, is when you're creating these profiles or creating these sweeps, put it as a piece of furniture. Okay. We can go through and let me do a sweep. It can be really almost any arbitrary shape. So let me put some really groovalicious spline in here. Yeah, it's just some weird shape. Okay, so in that, again, I have this notion of I've done the path. Within that, I can now go through and edit a profile and draw some existing profile. Or I can load an existing profile in there and just bring it in there, whatever I like. So let me just go ahead and for the profile, choose one of those existing ones. Some flat fascia, like a piece of cover. That'd be interesting. So now you have this big snaky thing that's following whatever you drag along there. So pretty interesting. It works pretty well. Okay, the last one we'll show you today is the Revolve. Where'd it go? Mr. Snowman. Okay, because Mr. Snowman's a good object. What's another example that was also going to be a Revolve? I forget what it was. The cone would work too. I could show you a swept blend, but you'll know what that works. A swept blend is it's a sweep, and there's one profile at the start and there's one profile at the end. So not too bad. Okay, Revolve looks like this. Okay, you got a profile and you basically have an axis. You're going to rotate that around. Okay, so not too bad. Now for my snowman, let's think about this. If I draw my axis down on the ground or my profile on the ground and we rotate him, he's going to be lying on the ground. Okay, so what I probably want to do is actually have something called a reference plane or a work plane where I can sketch vertically as opposed to down flat on the ground. Okay, and your elevations actually have this property. Your elevations allow you to sketch vertically. Yes? Oh, you're stretching. Ah, no worries. I'm geared up and ready for a question. Okay. So what we're going to actually do is for drawing this, I'm going to show you how you can create just a vertical plane to draw on as opposed to just the normal horizontal planes or the default ones. And let me show you where this exists. Okay, as we're doing this stuff, let me finish up my little snaky thing. Okay, you can create new drawing planes whenever you want to. Drawing planes, work planes are really just places you place things. And level 1 is a work plane. Level 2 is a work plane. All your levels are planes. Your elevations are planes. Your sections are planes. Anytime you define one of those cutting planes, it defines a plane that you can then pick. Okay. If you want to go through and create another plane just in some arbitrary place, you could always do that too. It's just really something, has no physical meaning. It's just a construction piece that'll help you work with things or draw things. And there's this notion over here, it's way over on the right-hand side of the ribbon. It's called the work plane section. And there's something that lets you draw a reference plane. So let me show you what it looks like. You're basically going to just choose that tool. I can either pick or draw. I'm going to draw. I'm just going to draw at some arbitrary location out here, a vertical line or a line that will kind of define a plane that will cut vertically as opposed to horizontally. So that's my reference plane. Now, the plane exists. The only problem with that plane is if he doesn't have a name, he's hard to pick. Okay, so it's better to give him a name. So I'm going to call it my snowman plane. Okay. Again, this won't show up in any of the physical models. It's just sort of a good reference line to hang things on. Okay. And now that we have my snowman plane, let me go ahead and I'll switch back over in my 3D view. And see if I can, oh, I'm going to go to that side over there. Now, if I try to draw now, I'm actually going to be drawing on level 1, the flat plane. So it won't let me draw because I'm perpendicular, or it's orthogonal to where I am right now. It's going to be unhappy. It'll say, you can't draw at this oblique angle. What I can do is say, set my work plane. And I can choose the snowman plane. And now I'm going to be drawing on it, that flat surface. Now, if it helps, you can also show the plane. Yeah, we usually leave that turned off, but it's just some sort of visual indication of where the plane is right now. And if you want to see it in 3D, that's where it is. It's just out there where we drew it. And now we can start drawing on it. Let me square up again. Okay, so for Mr. Snowman, we need 2 different things. Component. Oops, not that. Model in place. That. What would my snowman be? He'll be a piece of entourage. Could be a site fixture. He could be all sorts of things. Okay. 2 things we're going to draw. Revolve, revolve, revolve. There it is. Okay. We're going to draw the boundary line. We're going to draw the axis line. Okay, let's see if we can make this work. For my boundary line, actually, it's going to be a test for me to remember exactly what I want to do. I'm going to draw a line that looks kind of like, oh, here to here, kind of bow it out like that. Then maybe I'll do a little kind of straight line. No, actually, I can do another one like that. I'll do from here to here, make it a little smaller. Something like that. Now, the test I was wondering about, even in my own mind, I'm pretty sure I have to make it a 2-sided surface. I can't just make it a single line. I'm not 100% certain. I'll tell you if I fail in just a second. I don't remember right offhand. Let me try drawing the boundary line and closing it that way. But if it doesn't work, you'll know that I remembered incorrectly and I actually need to go through and close it. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the boundary line. That's not what I want to do right now. Oh, I could do it that way. That might complain. We'll see if that'll do it. What I'm doing here is, what is it? It's going to follow the boundary rules. So they can't be overlapping. I may have just really lucked out and gotten that exactly right, which I kind of doubt because I'm never that lucky. Let's see what else is going on here. Maybe I'll join this over here. Okay, this will be a solid snowman with a slightly flat top. Okay, if I wanted to, I could offset lines and then have a hollow snowman. It's kind of whatever you want. Okay, but I got this. I'm going to draw an axis line. For my axis line, I could either draw it or I could actually pick it because I want it to be right along that line. Okay, so blue line is the axis, pink line is the revolve. Cross your fingers. Ooh, not too bad. Okay. Could use a little work on that flat top. Maybe we need to put a hat on him, something like that. Finish that up. Rotate that around. Oh. We probably should have made some material for snow. And now you can go ahead and put like little eyes on him and stuff like that. Not too bad. Needs a little work, but you get the idea. Okay, now you're loving this so much. Your snowman is so incredibly cool. You want to create a family of snowmen in your project. Okay. I'd love to have the snowman, but I want another one that's only 4 feet tall, and I want another one that's only 3 feet tall because they have a nice little family. Or I want to share this with Raj because he needs to make his little snow scene too. Okay, and the problem is in model in place land, I can't do that very easily. I've got this snowman and I can copy him and I can rotate him and all that, but I can't really resize him very easily and I can't share him very easily. So that's the problem with this land over here.